The rain pounded mercilessly against the windshield as Emma Harrington sat helplessly in her stalled Bentley, watching the man in the soaked uniform kneel beside her car, tools in hand, determination etched across his weathered face. Little did she know that this chance encounter would change both their lives forever. If you've ever believed that one moment of kindness can rewrite someone's entire future, stay with me until the end of this incredible true story. And if this journey touches your heart, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel for more stories that remind us of the extraordinary power of human connection. Michael Chen wiped the rain from his eyes as he tightened the last bolt on the undercarriage of the luxury vehicle. At 42, his hands bore the calluses of a lifetime of hard work, each line and scar telling the story of a man who had never backed down from a challenge. The rain soaked through his mechanic's uniform, the logo of Preston Automotive barely visible through the downpour. He didn't care about getting wet. All that mattered was finishing the job before his shift ended so he could pick up his daughter, Lily, from the after-school program on time. "That should do it, ma'am," Michael said, rising to his feet and wiping his hands on a rag that was already soaked through. "Your alternator connection was loose. I've secured it, but you might want to have it properly checked at a service center when you get the chance." The woman behind the wheel, elegant, poised, with sharp eyes that seemed to take in every detail, nodded appreciatively. "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't stopped." Michael smiled, the kind of smile that reached his eyes despite the exhaustion behind them. "Just doing my job, ma'am. Have a good evening." He turned to leave, already calculating if he had enough time to make it back to the shop and then to Lily's school without being late again. "Wait," the woman called after him. "At least let me know your name." "Michael." "Michael Chen," he replied, rainwater dripping from his chin. "Thank you, Michael Chen," she said, her voice carrying a note of something he couldn't quite place. "I won't forget this." As Michael trudged back to his 15-year-old Honda Civic, he had no idea that the woman was Emma Harrington, the reclusive owner of Preston Automotive Group, the very company that employed him. Nor did he know that his simple act of kindness would set in motion a chain of events that would test his resilience, challenge his principles, and ultimately redefine his future. The next morning dawned clear and bright, a stark contrast to the previous day's downpour. Michael arrived at Preston Automotive 10 minutes early, as he always did. The service center was already buzzing with activity, mechanics preparing for the day's appointments, the smell of coffee and motor oil hanging in the air. "Chen. My office, now." The booming voice of Richard Dawson, the service manager, cut through the morning chatter. Michael's colleagues exchanged glances, a few offering sympathetic looks as he made his way to Dawson's glass-walled office. Richard Dawson was a man who wore his authority like an expensive suit, with obvious pride and little subtlety. He sat behind his desk, fingers steepled, eyes cold. "You helped a stranded motorist yesterday," Dawson stated, not a question but an accusation. Michael nodded, confusion creasing his brow. "Yes, sir. On Maple Drive. Her car had stalled in the rain. In your uniform. Using company tools. I was on my way back from the Henderson job. I couldn't just drive past someone who needed help." Dawson's mouth tightened into a thin line. "Our policy is clear, Chen. Company resources are for scheduled clients only. Not for random Good Samaritan acts." Michael felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. "Sir, it was pouring rain. The woman was stranded." "I don't care if she was the Queen of England," Dawson cut in. "Rules are rules. And you broke them." He slid a document across the desk. "Your termination papers. Clean out your locker by noon." The words hit Michael like a physical blow. Termination? For helping someone? For unauthorized use of company time and resources, Dawson corrected, his tone suggesting the conversation was over. "You've had warnings before about bending the rules, Chen. This time you broke them." Michael stared at the paper, his mind racing to Lily, to rent due next week, to the medical bills still piling up from his late wife's illness. "Mr. Dawson, please. I'm a single father. I need this job." "Should have thought of that before playing hero," Dawson replied, already turning his attention to his computer. "That'll be all." In a daze, Michael cleaned out his locker, accepting awkward condolences from coworkers who dared not speak too loudly lest they attract Dawson's attention. By 11:30, he sat in his car in the employee parking lot, termination papers on the passenger seat, wondering how he would tell his 10-year-old daughter that Daddy had lost his job again. Across town, in the penthouse office of Preston Automotive Group's headquarters, Emma Harrington reviewed quarterly reports with her executive team. At 53, Emma had built Preston from a single dealership inherited from her father into a regional powerhouse with 12 locations across 3 states. Known for her shrewd business acumen and exacting standards, she rarely involved herself in day-to-day operations anymore, preferring to focus on strategic growth and innovation. The service department at the West Side location continues to outperform projections, her CFO noted, highlighting a section of the report. Customer satisfaction scores are up 12% year-over-year. Emma nodded, her mind momentarily drifting to the mechanic from yesterday, Michael Chen. His kindness had stayed with her, a simple human connection in a day otherwise filled with spreadsheets and strategy sessions. "What about the East Side Service Center?" she asked, referring to the location where Michael worked, though she didn't yet know this connection. Her operations director grimaced slightly. "Holding steady, but not growing as projected. Dawson runs a tight ship, but customer reviews suggest the team lacks warmth." Emma made a note. "Schedule a visit. I want to see it for myself." The meeting continued, but Emma found herself distracted by thoughts of the rain-soaked mechanic and his gentle competence. There had been something in his eyes, a depth of character, a quiet dignity, that had impressed her more than she cared to admit. Meanwhile, Michael drove home in silence, the radio off, his thoughts too loud for any additional noise. How would he pay Lily's tuition at the special arts program she loved? How many months could they survive on his meager savings? The questions pounded in his head like the rain had pounded on his back the day before. His phone rang, the school's number flashing on the screen. Michael's heart sank as he answered. "Mr. Chen? This is Mrs. Rodriguez from Oakwood Elementary. Lily had a bit of an episode during math class. She's calmed down now, but we think it would be best if you could pick her up early today." "I'll be right there," Michael said, already changing lanes to head toward the school. Lily's anxiety episodes had begun after her mother's death 2 years ago. Usually well managed with therapy and routine, they still occasionally surfaced, especially during times of stress or change. Michael wondered if somehow she had sensed the new upheaval in their lives. When he arrived at the school, Lily sat in the nurse's office, her dark hair falling around her face as she focused intently on a drawing. At the sight of her father, she looked up, relief washing over her features. "Daddy! You're early." Michael knelt beside her, brushing her hair back from her forehead. "Hey, Lilipad. Heard you had a rough day." She nodded, her eyes, so like her mother's, serious beyond her years. The numbers got all jumbled again. "And then I couldn't breathe right." "You used your counting technique?" "Yes. And Mrs. Rodriguez helped me with my breathing squares." She held up her drawing, a series of colorful boxes with different patterns inside. "See? Breathe in for the striped ones, hold for the dotted ones, out for the empty ones." Michael smiled, his heart swelling with pride at her resilience. "That's my girl. Always finding beautiful ways to solve problems." As they drove home, Michael debated whether to tell Lily about losing his job. She was perceptive, she would notice something was wrong. But he didn't want to burden her with adult worries. "Daddy?" Lily's voice broke into his thoughts. "Why aren't you wearing your work clothes?" Michael took a deep breath. "Well, Lilipad, I have some news." I'm not going to be working at Preston Automotive anymore. Lily's eyes widened. Did you get a better job? Like fixing spaceships instead of cars? Despite everything, Michael laughed. Not exactly. Sometimes, grown-ups and their bosses disagree about things. My boss and I had a disagreement, so I'll be looking for a new job. Lily was quiet for a moment, processing this. Is that why my tummy felt funny at school? Because you were sad? Michael reached over to squeeze her hand. You know what? Maybe it was. They say kids have special sensors for when their parents are worried. Will we be okay? The simple question held all the weight of the world. We will always be okay, Lillipad. You and me, we're a team. And teams figure things out together. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Michael sat at their small kitchen table with his laptop open, searching job listings and updating his resume. The termination from Preston would be a black mark. The automotive repair community was small, and word traveled fast. Still, he had skills, experience, and a perfect record before today. Surely someone would take a chance on him. His phone buzzed with a text from his neighbor, Mrs. Patel, a retired teacher who often watched Lily when Michael worked late. Saw you home early. Everything okay? Michael hesitated, then typed back, lost my job today. Looking for something new. Could use some extra childcare next week for interviews if possible. Her response was immediate, of course. Lily is always welcome. And Michael? This is just a bend in the road, not the end of it. Michael smiled at the screen, grateful for the small kindnesses that made life's hardships bearable. Mrs. Patel had been a godsend after Sarah's death, stepping in to help with Lily when grief had nearly paralyzed him. She was right, this was just a bend in the road. He'd navigated worse. With renewed determination, he turned back to his job search, unaware that across town, Emma Harrington was making inquiries of her own. The next morning, Emma arrived unannounced at the East Side Service Center, dressed casually in slacks and a simple blouse, her usual power suits left behind for this incognito visit. She observed the operation from the customer waiting area, noting the efficiency but also the distinct lack of warmth in customer interactions. When Richard Dawson emerged from his office to speak with a dissatisfied customer, Emma watched his dismissive body language with growing disapproval. After an hour of observation, she approached the service desk, where a young woman with a name tag reading, Tina, greeted her with practiced politeness. Good morning. I was hoping to speak with one of your mechanics, Michael Chen. He helped me yesterday when my car broke down. Tina's professional smile faltered. Oh, Mr. Chen no longer works here, ma'am. Emma raised an eyebrow. Since yesterday? Yes, ma'am. I'm afraid I can't discuss personnel matters, but I'd be happy to assign another technician to look at your vehicle. That won't be necessary, Emma replied, her voice cooling several degrees. I'd like to speak with the service manager. Minutes later, she sat across from Richard Dawson, who had no idea he was facing the owner of the entire company. Emma had deliberately kept a low profile over the years, rarely appearing in company materials or press releases, preferring to let her results speak for themselves. Ms. Smith, Dawson said, using the name Emma had given at the front desk, I understand you're inquiring about a former employee. Michael Chen, Emma confirmed. He assisted me yesterday during the rainstorm when my car stalled. I wanted to thank him properly. Dawson's expression tightened. Ah, yes. Unfortunately, Mr. Chen violated company policy by providing unauthorized roadside assistance. We have strict protocols about the use of company time and resources. So you fired him? For helping a stranded motorist? Ma'am, I understand you benefited from his actions, but rules exist for a reason. Preston Automotive maintains high standards. And what standard exactly was upheld by punishing an act of basic human decency? Emma interrupted, her voice level but sharp. Dawson shifted uncomfortably. With all due respect, ma'am, you don't understand our business model. If every mechanic stopped to help random people on the road, we'd... I think I understand your business model perfectly well, Mr. Dawson, Emma said, rising to her feet. Thank you for your time. As she turned to leave, Dawson called after her, would you like me to schedule you with another technician, Ms. Smith? Emma paused at the door. No, thank you. I believe I'll take my business elsewhere. Somewhere that values kindness as much as protocol. Back in her car, Emma made a phone call to her HR director. Janet, I need everything we have on a Michael Chen, mechanic at the East Side Service Center. And I want Richard Dawson's complete personnel file on my desk by this afternoon. That same morning, Michael had dropped Lily at school with a brave face, assuring her that he had several promising leads, a well-intentioned lie, and would pick her up with good news. Now, sitting at his kitchen table surrounded by job listings that either paid too little or required relocation, his confidence was waning. His phone rang, an unknown number. Michael answered, hoping for a response to one of the applications he'd sent out the night before. Is this Michael Chen? A woman's voice asked. Yes, this is he. Mr. Chen, my name is Janet Winters, HR Director at Preston Automotive Group. I'm calling regarding your termination from our East Side Service Center. Michael's grip tightened on the phone. Ms. Winters, if this is about returning tools or uniforms, I left everything. Actually, Mr. Chen, this is about an opportunity. Would you be available to come to our corporate headquarters this afternoon for a meeting? Confused but hopeful, Michael agreed to the meeting, wondering if perhaps they were reconsidering his termination. Maybe Dawson's decision was being reviewed. It was a long shot, but he needed any chance he could get. The Preston Automotive Group headquarters was an impressive glass and steel structure in the heart of the business district, a far cry from the service center where Michael had spent the last 3 years. Dressed in his best button-down shirt and the only tie he owned, he felt distinctly out of place among the professionally attired employees bustling through the lobby. Janet Winters met him personally, a tall woman with a kind smile that put him slightly more at ease. Thank you for coming on such short notice, Mr. Chen. Please, follow me. She led him to an elevator that required a key card, then up to the top floor where the executive offices were located. Michael's confusion grew with each step. Why would a simple reconsideration of his termination involve the corporate headquarters? Was this standard procedure, or was something else happening? Janet stopped outside a corner office with a magnificent view of the city. Ms. Harrington will see you now, she said, opening the door. Michael stepped into the spacious office, immediately recognizing the woman behind the desk as his stranded motorist from the rainstorm. The pieces suddenly clicked into place, and he felt a wave of disbelief wash over him. Mr. Chen, Emma Harrington said, rising from her chair with a warm smile. Thank you for coming. Please, have a seat. Still processing the revelation, Michael sat in the offered chair. You own Preston Automotive. I do, Emma confirmed. Though I prefer to stay behind the scenes most of the time. It gives me a clearer picture of how the company actually functions, rather than how people want me to think it functions. Michael nodded slowly. And the car trouble? Was that some kind of test? Emma laughed, the sound genuine and warm. Completely coincidental, I assure you. My alternator really was having issues. But your response to that situation revealed something important about your character, and about a significant problem within my company. She slid a folder across the desk. Michael opened it to find a job offer, for a position as head service trainer for all Preston Automotive locations, with a salary nearly double what he'd been making. Ms. Harrington, I don't understand. It's quite simple, Mr. Chen. You were fired for exemplifying exactly the values I want this company to represent. Kindness. Initiative. Putting people before policies. That tells me 2 things: we have the wrong policies.